This is Professor Messner, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the second half of Chapter 21 and the first half of Chapter 22, which is what we're going to be reading this week. In Chapter 21, what we're going to be seeing is how the reform movement got into national politics because it took on the problems that urban industrialization had caused. Teddy Roosevelt is the first major politician we hear about in that movement. When he becomes president in 1901, when William McKinley is assassinated, he promises everybody he's going to continue McKinley's policies. Trouble is, Roosevelt is a progressive. He is not a conservative the way McKinley had been. And it really didn't take him long to break away from both the tradition that McKinley had set and a lot of Roosevelt's Republican Party at the time. William Howard Taft, who succeeded Roosevelt, really did not have any talent in dealing with Congress, and he could not bridge the gap between the progressives and the conservatives. And not only that, the poor guy managed to alienate Teddy Roosevelt on tariffs, on conservation, and especially on trusts. Woodrow Wilson becomes president in 1913. He gets tariff reform passed, banking reform passed, antitrust reform passed, Federal Trade Act passed, and then he announces progressivism has run its course. He does change his mind about that after his Democratic Party takes a licking in the midterm elections of 1914. And Wilson kind of becomes a champion of a lot of the causes that Roosevelt had taken on. Towards the end of the chapter, you're going to get an assessment of progressivism, and the people who are making that assessment really are saying that it really was only good for white men. You may agree, you may disagree, but I hope you get a better perspective on that issue in what you're reading. In Chapter 22, we hear about Woodrow Wilson's pre-war foreign policy. Now, Wilson, having been the governor of New Jersey and before then a professor at Princeton, really wasn't much interested in foreign policy. He ran for president in 1912. He finds out pretty quickly that the United States cannot remain aloof from the rest of the world. And he believed that America should provide an example for morality for the rest of the world, what we call moral diplomacy. He believed in the sanctity of human rights, he believed in the right of law, he believed in the right of self-determination, and he believed in free trade. What we see towards the end of our readings this week is the beginnings of the United States' involvement in World War I. You will see that we pledged neutrality in 1914, but that was problematic because Germany was continuing to use unrestricted submarine warfare against the United States. When Wilson does take action, he says that the goal is not to destroy Germany, but to make the world safe for democracy, whatever he meant by that at the time. So that takes us to the end of this week's readings, and I will see you soon.